This is part 3 of our tour of RStudio. We were looking in my lower left pane, which once again may be in a different location than yours, and I was studying the History tab. Your History tab may be someplace else. We will look at how to change that on your system if you choose to do it. But let me go through the other tabs we have here very quickly. Not much to say about those. The Connections tab is for when we connect to a database that's not on our system. We're not going to do that in this class. I believe that almost all of you, at least at this point in your careers, are going to be working primarily with data that is on your system. But R is actually very powerful in terms of connections, both incoming and outgoing, that it can do on databases and websites that are on the web anywhere in the world. So you literally within R could connect to a database that was, say, in California and actually work on the data from your RStudio right here in South Carolina. We're not going to be using that, but I wanted you to know that that's available. Similarly, with Viewer, Viewer is for viewing local web-based material. That is things like HTML files. We're not going to touch this right now, although later on we may play with it a little bit. Know that what it's for is for looking at hosted webs that are actually local to your computer. And then the Tutorial tab, that's kind of self-evident. That's a tutorial about R. And this Tutorial tab is, the first time you click on it, going to tell you that you need to load a package in order to be able to see anything here. So I have loaded the package and installed it, which is why we can see this here on my system. Yours will tell you what package to install. You're in the class right now. You're going to have plenty to do with learning R with what we do in the class, so you really don't need to work through this tutorial. If you want to, you can learn how to install packages and then do that. We are going to talk more about packages and installing packages at a later date. Speaking of that, let's go over to this final pane, and there is a Packages tab, and that Packages tab is going to allow me to see all the packages that I have installed, all the packages that I have active, the version numbers of the packages, checking for updates on installing. We're going to deal with all these when we talk about packages later on. So I'm going to set this aside for now, but since we're doing an overview of RStudio, I thought I would show you this Packages tab. We've already looked at the Environment tab, but we didn't really talk about the icons underneath it. The Environment tab will open the pane that shows you these various objects that are within your memory in R, within your workspace, as well as what is contained within the object. So my variable is an object that right now, Hello World, is contained within it. If I click this little icon here, I can load objects that I previously have saved by clicking this diskette. So if I wanted to, I could click on this diskette. I could save into my project directory all the objects that are here. In essence, you're saving the workspace that we learned about when we looked at the R program without RStudio. And then if you click here, you can load your workspace and all those objects would load right here. I seldom do that. And the reason why I seldom do that is because I have the files available to me that I'm working on, and I can reload by rerunning those files anytime I want. I imagine if you were working on a mega project in which running the script took 5 minutes, you might want to save all the objects and reload it to be able to save time. So you're not going to see me doing this much, but someone might have a workflow that you actually prefer to save what is in your environment and then call it up the next time you open R, and that provides you a way to do that. As you'll see, we can automatically save and load when we first start R. I'll show you that when we go through the options for RStudio. Now, this might look very interesting to you, but I'm actually going to discourage its use. This is for importing a data set. And if I click on the arrow, you'll see that RStudio can import text. It can import from Excel, SPSS, SAS, and Stata. Those may seem like very useful functions. So why do I discourage it? Because what this is doing is importing on a user click. And what I'd rather you do is, if you need to import data when you're going to work on it in your script, is to write the import right into your script. And that's what we're going to be doing in this class. We are going to write the data imports into our scripts so that every time we load the script and run it, the data is imported automatically rather than us pulling down a menu and then going and hunting for which data it is that we're going to import. The broom, as I've already mentioned before, will clear the environment. I'll go ahead and do it now. No reason not to. We can always rerun what we have up here if we want, and there are the items back into our environment. Now the Files tab will show you the files within your project directory. And when you're working on a big project, it will also show the folders. That is, you can have subfolders within the project folder. So if I wanted, for instance, a subfolder with my data, I can click on that, and now I can put data in the data folder. By using the Here library that I introduced you to in one of the introductory videos, you can call from subfolders very easily when you want to load, for instance, your data. So if I was to show you my project folder for this class, let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and call my other class 711 because it shows you the same sort of thing. If I were to look at the files that are actually in that folder, we will see that we have files here as well as subfolders. So I have data in a subfolder. Here I have files for my syllabus down here. Here I have my R notebooks that I'm using in that class. So these are subfolders within the folder. In most of my classes, I allow students to keep all their files in a single folder within their project directory, but you're in a class in which you're learning to be more sophisticated with R, so I'm actually going to require you to do like what I have done here, to create a class project. So you'll have a project folder, and as you know from watching introductory videos, you can look at that folder in Finder on Mac or in Windows Explorer on Windows, and it works the same way it does from within RStudio. And we're going to have subfolders to keep everything organized. So rather than have a separate project for each assignment, I'm going to want you to have one project for your class. Then if you'd like to make a separate folder for each assignment, you can do so. This is going to become apparent why I want you to have one project from the class later on when we start talking about how we're going to collaborate as instructor and student, and for some projects as students with your fellow students. Let me go ahead and open my project back up that I had before, my first project. All right, now I'm back to my first project. Let's go to the next tab. This provides any plots that you have. So if I run my two-group analysis right here, if I go ahead and run everything, I actually produce a plot with that analysis. And you will see this in the plot window. If I click on this back arrow, it would be if I have other plots that I've created. So you can go back and forth between all the plots that were created until you close the project by using these arrows front and back. If you click on zoom, that's like a tearable pane. That is, you can bring out the graph and study it. You can change the size of it to make it bigger or smaller if you wish, just like we can with our script panes. When I export, it allows me to save this as a picture that I could import into another program, such as Microsoft Word. This icon removes only the current plot. So if I click on this icon, the other plot that you've seen here will stay there, but this will delete the current plot. You can always build it again by running the script. And this broom will get rid of all the plots. So if I click on that broom, all plots are gone. We've already talked about the Packages tab. The Help tab is, as the name implies, to provide help. And if you put into the search button the name of, for example, a function like t-test, you can receive documentation on the t-test. You can also receive it by doing a web search. And if you do a web search, you're going to have more than simply this formal documentation. So quite frankly, I don't use the Help tab very often. I do a web search because it's going to provide me multiple links with not only the formal documentation in 1 or 2 links, but also people showing you how to use that function in some of the other links. So I find actually the documentation I get on the web to be more useful than the documentation I get here. But nonetheless, it's here, it's built in, and you can show this in a tearable pane just like you can with the scripts. The Home button will take you back to the home, and if you use the arrows, you can go back and forth between things that you've already looked at. And so right now it's taking me back to the home page and to the one thing I looked at about the student's t-test. Each of these tabs really change the nature of a pane. So what you're looking at here as 1, 2, 3, 4 panes really can be thought of as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. That is, each of these 4 panes can be changed to have a different developmental function that will help you out with your project development. In the next video, we'll look at these main menu options, and specifically, I'm going to show you how to change your RStudio so that you can make it look the way you want to look, just as I have done.